All right, so today I want to talk more about a topic I've talked a lot about before, and it is the growth rates in Canada, the Canadian economy, all that kind of stuff. So this is from tradingeconomics.com, and it has the quarterly GDP growth of Canada going back to it would be the third quarter of 2017. So going back a decent amount of time, and the first thing that people probably are going to notice is that it has taken a very big nosedive over the last 2 quarters. And the next thing you'll probably notice is that the growth was almost non-existent before that. Now, again, the first thing to point out here is this is Justin Trudeau. This is on the Liberals, and why is that? Because Canada was already almost in a recession going into this, right? Like we had consecutive quarters of zero point 0.3 and 0.1% growth. 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth is considered a recession. We are currently in a recession, and considering the fact that again we were very, very, very close to already being in a recession, even before the whole virus situation, we are going to recover out of this into a recession. That is how scary things are going to be going forward. Now, again, is it all bad? No, there is some good news, but doesn't nearly balance out the bad news. And I think um, the fact that the Trudeau government's going to keep doing their usual garbage coming out of this, the fact that they're using the virus as a situation or as a an excuse to continue to double down on their stupid green energy garbage and their all their socialist policies is not a good sign. Like it's not a good sign for us going forward. Um, what are the solutions? Again, like you know, people always bring up too. You shouldn't always just point out problems and not offer up solutions, which I almost always do offer up solutions, and I make videos offering up solutions. But nonetheless, what is the solution to get us out of this problem? Well, the reason why I'm so pessimistic when it comes to this kind of stuff is that the solution to get us out of the situation we're in is not what's going to happen. The governments are not going to do what needs to happen. And what needs to happen is, number one, we need to stop being so paranoid about the virus. That's the first thing. We need to get rid of like 99% of the lockdown measures. The only lockdown measures we should have in place is something to safeguard older people to some degree, right? Something needs to be done as far as that goes. But when it comes to younger people, nothing needs to be done. Like nothing needs to be done. The idea that we should have mask mandates and social distancing and gathering limits and all this garbage, number one, it's pure pseudoscience. None of it is actually based in science. And number two, you can't do it forever. Even, this is the other thing too that the lockdown zealots refuse to acknowledge is that even if the science is on their side, which it isn't, and when you get these people to talk more, you'll get them to admit that they just don't realize it. In that they contradict themselves when you start bringing up what we did in the past when it comes to this kind of stuff and what we're doing in the here and now. But again, nonetheless, um, what needs to be done, like I say, is that we need to drastically reduce the amount of lockdown measures and stuff when it comes to this. Number one. Number two is we need to cut back spending. We need to cut back spending because you can't spend your way into prosperity. That's not how it works. Right? Like, that's not how it works. So we need to cut back spending, and that the problem is with that is if we cut back spending, that will hurt the economy in the here and now. That is true. The problem is that when you go into debt, you pay for it at some point. Like you don't just get to borrow money and never have to pay it back. That's not how it works. So again, debt will be a negative at one point or another. And the problem is that if you the longer you wait, the more of a drain it's going to be because of the concept of interest. And not only that, um, the fact that the more debt a government goes into, or the more debt an individual goes into, the less likely they are going to be able to borrow, right? Because I mean, it's basic, basic, financial knowledge in that the worse your credit rating is as an individual or as a country, the less likely people are going to be to want to borrow from you, or the more interest you're going to have to pay. right? So again, that is the big problem when it comes to debt. So the first two things are get rid of the vast majority of the lockdown measures, cut back spending, and then on the flip side, what needs to be done? Well, number one, we need to massively deregulate. We have way, way, way too many regulations that kill jobs, that kill innovation, and just they do way more harm than good, basically. I think that taxes should be cut in some instances. I mean, in another word, what needs to be done when it comes to taxes and when it comes to that stuff in general is that we need to go away. Right now, the current way that the system works basically is that the more productive you are, the more we're going to tax you. And the less productive you are, the more we're going to give you, right? So basically, in other words, we have a system that encourages irresponsibility and encourages people from not producing, and on the flip side we discourage people from producing and stuff like that, right? So that is the big problem. Like this is one of the main reasons why we have such little growth, is that we tell someone who creates a business and becomes a successful business that, hey, we're going to tax more and more of your money, both through corporate taxes and personal income taxes, right? And what are we going to do with it? We're going to give it to, people on welfare. We're going to give it to single moms so they can have kids with, unreliable guys, stuff like that, right? So that is one of the main reasons why the economy is so stagnant, is because we have to prop up people that don't produce, and we have to discourage the producers from producing more, right? And again, anybody who understands money and understands, wealth and all this kind of stuff knows that the way you get wealthy is by being smart with money. That's probably, I mean, in a nutshell, that is the easiest way. And again, it is the mark of someone who is incredibly ignorant, or when it comes to the politicians, knows that the average person is incredibly ignorant and they'll believe anything they say. The people that believe that, if you raise taxes, then that's going to help the economy. If you raise corporate taxes, that's going to help the economy. Or, this kind of stuff. Like, it is a mark of sincere ignorance, because how do people get rich? How do people get rich? Well, it's by being smart with money. I mean, you take the average millionaire becomes a millionaire through some form of compound interest, whether it's real estate, whether it's investments. I mean, those are probably the two big ones, right? So again, how do they become rich? It's become because being smart with money. When you look at lower income people, yeah, they're lower income people. They're probably never going to be a millionaire. But what is the one thing that you notice, or at the very least, if you actually pay attention to these people, and I've seen plenty of them to know that this is not just a some outlier. It is most people, and that they're not good with money. They spend money on stupid stuff. They eat out a lot. It's the little things too. Like, this is another thing too that smarter people recognize, and that someone who is ignorant when it comes to money, they see $20 a month or $50 a month or $100 a month as, oh, it's just $20 a month, who cares, right? But a smart person sees that and say, hey, $20 a month, if I invest that wisely, that's 50, 60 grand, 30 years, 30, 40 years down the road. $100 a month, that's $500,000, right? So again, like, $100 a month, you can turn into $500,000 in 30, 40 years if you spend it wisely. Well, yeah. But again, poorer people tend to be much lower in intelligence than the richer people. And why is that? Is because, well, number one, it is partially luck of the draw, but number two, it's just the ability to defer gratification. And again, another thing you'll recognize too is that higher income people tend to be people that use the power of compound interest to benefit them. Lower income people tend to use it more to not benefit them, and that they got a balance on their credit card, they got a car payment, they got payments for this, payments for that, right? They're paying hundreds of dollars every month probably in interest, right? Rich people, they're probably paying less in interest than the average, someone making $500,000 a year or $1 million a year probably pays less in interest than someone who makes 50,000 a year, at least on average. And again, if they are, let's say they have a mortgage on a property or something like that, well, that property is still making them money, right? So the the interest on the mortgage of said property, they're still making way more than that than they are than paying the interest, right? So that's another thing to bring up that people may bring up. But anyway, getting back to the main point here, what are some other things that need to be done? Like I say, we need to stop. Like I say, we need to end the lockdown restrictions, or at the very least the vast majority of them. Number two, we need to deregulate, we need to cut taxes, we need to do all that kind of stuff. I mean, some other things that can be done too is we need to create an incentive for innovation too. I think that that's another thing too, that we have such little incentive to for people to innovate, especially in Canada. Not quite as much in the States, but in Canada. Another thing that needs to be done, a big one that I forgot, is we need to cut immigration. Like, there is no need for immigration whatsoever if unemployment is high. There is no need for it whatsoever. Until the unemployment rate is below 4%, I would maybe even lower. Like, the unemployment rate should be very, very low for us to have immigration. And on top of that, let's just say we do get to that number, because I don't think we will anytime soon in Canada. Um, the people that are coming need to be people that are going to produce. That is one of the other problems. There's two big problems with immigration. I mean, actually, there's three, but when it comes to the economy, there's two. Number one is the people that come. It drives down wages and they take jobs from the existing people. And again, the left will always vehemently disagree with that point. But then when you call their bluff and say, okay, well, let's implement a policy to do that kind of stuff, and they'll say, oh, no, 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 they don't want to do that. Like, let's implement a policy to where um, we need unemployment to be low before we do that. We need immigrants can only come to take jobs that Canadians physically will not take. Companies have already tried to hire them. The left still won't support those policies, so nobody actually believes that the immigrants don't drive down wages and takes jobs from Canadians. Nobody actually believes that, because the minute you ask the people that claim to disagree with it to put their money where their mouth is, they won't do it. So no one actually believes that. And number two, like I say, they drive down wages. And number two, is they're net negatives. Immigrants from the third world specifically are about twice as likely to be on welfare as the actual, an actual Canadian or an actual American, citizen, right? So again, and here's the other thing too: the left will vehemently disagree with that point as well. But then when you call their bluff again, okay, well, let's implement a policy that says, we can't be bringing people over that are that are going to be net negatives. They'll disagree with that as well. So again, there's no disputing either one of those points, and the people who dispute it, they don't even believe it either. So again, it's just pure insanity. So again, I think those are some basic things that can be done to fix the problem that we are in. And this is the thing that I brought up to. The last thing that I want to bring up too is that you talk to the average person out there these days, and they don't realize just how dire of a situation we are in. If the government wasn't pumping Canada, I mean, we are the Bank of Canada is stimulating the economy to the tune of almost $1 billion a day. That is the amount of debt that we are running right now. So again, people don't realize just how dire the situation we are in right now. Number one, because if we weren't running such a massive deficit, the entire system would have went belly up by now. We would have either, I mean, the solution would have been just to not lock down and stop pretending that it's so serious when it isn't. But nonetheless, people don't realize just how dire the situation is right now, because they think that, oh, it's because of the virus. And then when they realize that the economy is still really bad and it has nothing to do with the virus, then we're going to get some panic. Then we're going to get a lot of panic, because, like I say, what's going to happen is that we are going to recover out of this situation into a recession, and that's not going to be fun to deal with. And the real big problem too is, I think that the liberal governments and most of these most people are going to be, oh, this is proof we need a UBI, and then that's only going to make things worse, right? Like, that's only going to make things worse. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. This, like I say, this is a very important issue. And again, you talk to a lot of people out there and they think, oh, things aren't that bad. Like, things aren't that bad, but yeah, they really are. We are in a recession right now. And this isn't some run of the mill recession. This is something that's probably going to drag on for years. This is probably going to drag on for years. So, like I say, we need to implement some real solutions. The big problem is that governments aren't going to go for it. Like even conservative governments aren't going to do most of this kind of stuff. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Parler, BitChute. All those links are in the description. Like I say, just hit that like and subscribe. Check out those links and stay tuned for more.